Alright, we got some Australia views here. Should be right, mate. No worries. Yeah, fair income. Shouldn't have said that. Now you know I'm a Yank. So the Aborigine Australians, Aboriginal Australians, were probably rainmakers. Uluru, or what used to be called Ayers Rock in Australia, may have been a rain scraper. Throughout contemporary and ancient history, mankind has had a remarkably ignorant relationship with precipitation. What we admire as progressive initiative in research and engineering may only, in fact, be little more than an insignificant fraction of the possibility of human reason and other higher forms of thought any human individual might be capable of. Well, I guess that puts it in a nutshell, huh, kid? The ancient Aborigines marched to the different tune, as it were, and came up with stewardship fire. Stewardship fire setting in order to do what we now might tend to think as preventative burns of the bush or scrub or woodland to keep later, more life-threatening bushfires from happening. Okay, but were they doing more? We don't know, and worse, have refused to know about the concept of cloud seeding, as it was called in the 1950s. You see, when someone has proffered the illusion of being learned, that person or group of them, even worse, will actually stand in the way of discovery until they happen upon some actual research that they can steal safely. The Aboriginal scientists lacked what so-called civilization, inverted commas, had, and that was a form of literature capability that used characters on a portable sheath of any sort, such as paper, that, when in conjunction with a learned mind, could act as a sort of tape recorder to reproduce words, much as we do when we read a text that is set down. Read. That's a catchy word. They used to use a reed to mark their place. That's not such a bad idea. I need a reed so I can read. Yeah, excuse me, I gotta imbibe a drop of vitamin X here. Too bad it's not a French espresso. That would be Aix-en-Provence. Whoa. Coffee, in other words. Now we gotta blot the mustache. Sorry. Okay. We imagine this to be a great thing. What's the... Say you can read it right. What the heck is the big deal here, bud? We imagine this to be a great thing, but it is trivial compared to what else we might have come up with by now. Stop thinking so highly of yourself. See, I'm assuming that you are, but anyway, if you are, And maybe you'll get somewhere for a change. Maybe you'll start making historic landmark strides and be hated by everyone. Hemlock cocktails extended to you from everywhere in the bristling crowd. What do you think all this artwork is about that I've been trying to show you on my website? Those of you who've been checking it out, I don't know. It's like those of you, like all 10 of you in the last month or whatever it was. Slash http://3w.paulhallart.com. It's a non-literature communication that is beyond reading. Literature has its drawbacks. For one thing, truly significant bits of literature can be lost in a sea of non sequitur mediocrity, for want of a better term, non sequitur, as in comedy or joke. And it must be related, for want of that, for want of a better term, must be relegated to the levels of bovine scatology, as I heard General say once. The original Rainmaker, on the other hand, if existent, would have passed on the information by word of mouth, which would then have been sorted out in the minds of thousands of individuals as to priority and then passed on at meetings or encounters. Literature, on the other hand, has a tendency of taking a dominant level in the subconscious of the reader, which, if said literature has been trivial, will trivialize that reader's thoughts and tend to dominate his or her or his or their, safer pronoun, behavior and thinking. Why the campfire? What's that all about? Interesting, that. Falling asleep in my chair at my digs in Oxford during those winter months, having put about 5 or so shillings in a coin box of my little gas meter. You got 15 minutes for 5 pence in those days. That was in the 1971. No, 72. I could reach a threshold of waking and sleeping, a balance, waking and sleeping, where I could hear words being pronounced in the noise of the gas flames in the fireplace. As we put it in contemporary American jargon, I blew it off. Though as a boy I found I could listen to my choice of music in the drone of the inboard engine. I've got dyslexia, so I have trouble reading. I'm reading from this text here. Inboard engine of the Mark II as it droned up the Ashley River next to Charleston. Well, that goes way back. That's back in 1960, for crying out loud. Have you ever heard of the fire watchers of numerous Bronze Age societies? They would sit all night and in the obscurity of the early morning's darkness watch the brilliance of the flames, often enhancing them with special oils that produced colors. Or do you recall that plastic chain molecules were discovered, not by research, but in a dream? That's right. It was a plastic dream. Now we have plastic because somebody went to sleep and had a dream. It was something they could do in their sleep. Anyway, the question, dear reader, is how primitive are we? If we begin to realize that we are the cave people, the pre-Bronze Age simpletons, then, we will